And so we will take questions, and hopefully, if they don't have the exact answers for you, we can get them for you, all right? It's not a proposal at this time, it's just more of, this is where where we are so far, and we're seeing public comment just to make sure that we have covered what we think we should have. So I'm going to have Chief Duchamp introduce the two gentlemen, this gentleman and the one at 6:30, 7:30.
7:30.
Yeah, so, Chief?
Our first guest tonight is Al Bell. He's with Best Way Homes, and he's partnered with the folks from New England Homes. We have two different proposals at this point. One is to go modular, and another one is to go concrete form insulation. And so the proposal that we're listening to first is the one that's the modular system. So Al, you just want to give us a brief general description of the proposal that you submitted to us last year, and then after that, I'm sure we'll have some questions.
Okay. Well, first I'd like to apologize. My co-op from New England Homes fell and hurt himself around noontime. We had to kind of rush him off to the hospital, but he's doing okay, and he apologizes for not being here. So hopefully I can answer any questions you have with the modular side of the construction. So we've been on doing the police station with modular units. It'll take approximately 6 units that we bolt together on a regular foundation. The factory will send a crew that assembles the houses. We have a crane that we bring into the site that lifts the sections onto the foundation. The set crew from the modular home company will also erect the roof. The crane picks the roof up, and the set crew puts all the collar ties and so forth and so on. And then my company comes in, and we install the heating system, hook up all the plumbing, do all the electricals. I have all the buildings shipped with no siding. We side that on site because all the sections that come in, it kind of breaks the siding up. It's hard to line everything back up when you side it at the factory. These homes are built in a climate control building. It's a fairly new facility. All the walls are set up in jigs, so everything is nice and square and neat and so forth. All the sheathing and the siding, the sheathing for the outside of the building and the sheetrock inside the building is adhered on with adhesive. It's not screwed on, so you don't have any screw holes to mud and tape and so forth inside the buildings. The units come pretty much finished. They are all primed. All the trim inside is painted, finished painted. They come with no flooring, so my crews will put all the flooring in place. And we also will insulate under the floor on site. And once all the plumbing and all the vent pipes are put into the roof system, we insulate the upper level of the house. We propose this to be done with cellulose insulation. That's blown in at the factory under 3.5 pounds. Gets behind all the electrical components, all the things, and it makes a really nice, tight system. The energy value of these homes is equivalent to Energy Star. I don't know if you're familiar with the Energy Star construction, but that's way above the state standards. And we on site, we will blow into the ceiling an R50 that covers all the ceiling sections inside of the building. I don't know, anybody have any questions so far?
Okay, the original proposal was for police only. Since then, the committee has asked you folks and the next company coming in to give us just an estimate. You won't ask for, at this point, you won't ask for floor plans or diagrams or whatever, but at least for if we put the town hall as a second floor on the new building, roughly, what would that add?
Okay, I'm trying to figure this out. We have no
Along with the
No.
elevator, of course.
no floor plan or anything, but I figured if you built the second floor and covered that with structure that is equivalent to the downstairs except for the garage, we would also build a separate extension out to the side of the building, which would have a set of staircase and would have an elevator in it. So we had a separate heating system upstairs, we'd have the men's and ladies' room, all new flooring and so forth upstairs. I calculate that to cost, with the elevator and everything, to cost about $710,000. So on the first floor, our quote was $1,160,315. So you add that on, and now you have a total cost of the building of $1,870,615. Now, of course, last year's quote was gonna change a little bit with prices of things going up, and of course, we did not have exactly all the things that were going to happen inside the building, so that was kind of an estimate as well. Upstairs, again, I'm not sure whether it's just gonna be offices or whether you are doing something else upstairs, so that's a pretty, best estimate that I could come up with.
How big is it? How big is the building?
That's a good question.
60 by 90?
And the upstairs would be about the same without the garage downstairs.
So the original estimate is, it's about, it's like $170 a square foot.
Yeah.
So with adding the second floor, you're talking roughly $131 a square foot.
Right. Yeah. Now, go ahead.
Okay, and this is, it may not be for you, it may be for the committee as well, and that's just for the building, it's not kitted out as a police station or, have some things been added to it, like this, are there Sally ports in there, or are there things that are built into it, or are there not things that are built?
Yes, everything's built into it.
So-
The chief wanted a sally port, a big
Yeah.
garage. We have a holding room, we have
Okay,
3/4 inch plywood in certain areas where he wanted to, make it so that people couldn't pick holes in the wall. We have bulletproof glass in the section where, the secretary might be in there. And we have lockers and all this kind of thing. So those things were part of the quote, so those are included in that cost.
okay, and that's why adding the second floor without a hole, I think it brings down the cost per square foot.
That's right.
Obviously, yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Is this a wood frame structure?
This is a wood frame structure, it's 2x6 construction, similar to what you build your home with. Yes.
Would the cost of the second floor be increased if it were used for large meeting space? Because of
Probably
the rate?
not. We anticipated you were going to have some kind of a meeting space upstairs, so unless you had, front to back, huge room and something where we had to put special timbers to support the roof would, I think we probably covered that. But again, those are things, if you decided to move forward, we would have to have a plan drawn up and you would put your input as to what types of rooms are going to be up in that upper level. Yes?
Hi, I just needed the square footage, price per square foot with the second floor.
I think it was $131.
The bottom floor is $170 a square foot. The upstairs, $131 a square foot.
Yes.
Two questions. One is, the 710K, does that include the elevator?
Yes. Now, I looked into the cost of elevators, there's all types of elevators, and I'm not sure what size, but we figured something that would hold, 5, 6 people. They have hydraulic elevators and air-powered elevators and cable-driven elevators. We figured maybe a hydraulic or an air-driven elevator, those would run someplace between $35,000 and $50,000 installed into the structure that we would make to fit that elevator. We would have to build the structure to fit whatever elevator was chosen. So, yes.
One last question. What percentage increase can we anticipate over last year? You said that there's an increase, it's been a year now, so.
That's a good question. The factory has pretty much set a 5% increase on the new homes that they build. I'm not sure if that would carry over onto this, exactly that amount. Yes?
What is the expected life of this structure that you're proposing for useful life?
Oh, boy. I'd say, well, that's a good question. I don't know, 50, 60 years?
Well, I'm interested in the operating cost, the future operating cost, present value of future operating costs on the existing structure here and the structures that would be proposed to replace this. What's really going to happen to the operating cost portion between new structure and the existing structure that we're using now?
Well, I'd say the new structures are all much more energy efficient. All the new furnaces and things are way more efficient. I think the furnaces that we had planned for this, I think, were Goodman brand. I don't know if you're familiar with that brand, but they are condensing furnaces, and they are 98% efficient. So they exhaust through plastic pipe. They don't even have metal piping that they exhaust through.
But Mr. Bell, I know you don't want to mislead us, but that assumption is that we walk away from the current operating costs for this building, right? In other words, you only recover that savings if you zero out the maintenance cost for heating this building.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah, and I just like, I mean, I kind of understand Ed's question, but it's not like buying a car and asking how long it's gonna last, it's like buying a home. And if you keep it up, it's going to last indefinitely, would be my guess.
That's true. I mean, there's gonna be maintenance. You have to
Yeah.
change the floors once in a while as they get warm and so forth, yeah.
But if you walk, and if you abandon the home, it's gonna fall apart. If you don't abandon it and keep it up, it's going to last as long as it lasts.
That's right.
Well, my question would be in terms of a modular construction that you're proposing here versus a conventional structure. Well, is there any difference in the expected life? Is part also?
No, the modular structure is built similar to a stick-built house or a stick-built building. The floor systems are more rugged because they have to ship those over the highway, so they're stiffer. They put a lot more structure in the floor systems. You know, these units that we're bringing down are, 60 feet long and such. There's some 14-footer wide and so forth. So there'll be some flexing when the cranes lift those and put them in place. They're all bolted together. And then we bring our sheetrock guys in to patch, where they come together, and any cracks that show up from the flexing and the lifting of the units. So they are the same construction as you would build a brand new house. And probably better because they're put together in jigs, they're much more accurate, and some of the systems that they use, I think, they can't do on site with a stick-built house. I don't know if that helped answer your question or not. As far as roof systems go, you might consider doing a metal roof, which has a longer lifespan than asphalt shingles. They are more expensive, but it's a pretty much a lifetime deal.
And what is the difference in per square foot for metal versus asphalt?
It's nearly double. An asphalt roof, a brand new asphalt roof would be approximately, with the shingles and the labor, you're probably looking at $300 per square, which is 110 by 10, 100 square feet, versus about 500 to 550 for a metal roof. I just got a notice from Hobby Industries where we buy metal for our metal roofs. Metal roofing has gone up, today, it actually goes up tomorrow, 22%. That's, I think that's part of the tariff thing that's happening. Vinyl windows, I got a thing from Harvey Industries on that as well. Those are going up, I think 12%, the cost of vinyl.
For the same reason?
Yeah, same reason. I'm just guessing why they're going up, but all construction materials have now started to increase. We're doing a large home up in Guilford, and that has got cedar shakes on it, and those are coming from Canada, and I got a huge increase on those cedar shakes.
So it is 5% really accurate then, a 5% increase?
I don't know if I could probably talk to the module company tomorrow and get back to you on that. If you want an actual price jump that they would do.
Do you have a lot of people, that you, public administrative buildings that are using the metal roofs? We had talked about it at our meeting, and one of the things that was a concern for us in the winter months was that the snow falls
The
off
snow
of it.
sliding off.
And it
yeah.
could be a hazard to people going into the building.
That's correct, but they do make these stanchions with the, actually epoxy to the roof to keep the snow from sliding. I don't know if you've seen those on buildings or not. That's pretty standard when you get into a situation where you have a walkway or a parking lot or something that the snow could slide off and cause damage to. But they are much better than an asphalt roof as far as longevity goes.
Could you estimate how long it would take from the time you get to town, give the authority to do it, to the time that the project will be completed?
That's a good one.
6 months, 9 months, 12 months?
Well, I think what happens is, let's say that you chose us to do this job. We would first have to gear up, get all this, if you're gonna do the upstairs, we'd have to draw the plans up and so forth. The factory has 4 draftsmen that are constantly drawing up homes and so forth, so that happens pretty quick. But we have to consult with you guys to see what changes you wanna make and so forth. Once those plans are approved and we make adjustments to any of the pricing, the factory, I would say, would take to build these units. There are 6 units for the bottom floor and probably 6 units for the upper floor. It would probably take them 3 to 4 weeks to manufacture all those pieces. And then, once we set them up, it would take probably a week's time to truck them down, train them over in place, assemble them all, build all the roof. When the crew leaves from the factory, the building is weather tight. And then my guys come in and do all the rest of the stuff. And I would say it would take us probably 4 months to complete the building. It could be done quicker, but I would just say 4 months. So from the time that the units are set on the foundation to the time we can complete it would be probably close to 4 months.
And just to be clear, this is just the building, it does not include the foundation or any parking lots or any driveways or anything, correct? It's just the.
No, we calculated all that.
Oh, that's all we did too.
Foundation.
Okay.
We calculated with a crawl space, 4-foot
Okay.
crawl space, and that would have a cement floor in it. We call it a rat floor, which is, it's a 3-inch thick slab, but it's not smoothed out, it's just room smooth. You would have a couple of bulkhead entries to get in there, get at the piping and all the heating ducts and so forth in there. And we calculated, we didn't know exactly how much parking lot you were looking to do, so I can't remember how the square footage that we calculated, but we did calculate some for the parking lot.
Thank you, I wasn't sure about that.
Was that parking lot included in the cost you quoted?
Yes.
And so it's a finished, ready finished, right?
Yeah, we didn't include any shrubbery or any of that kind of thing. We would lumen seed the grass areas, but we didn't include any sort of landscaping type thing.
What kind of windows are you?
We were proposing to use Geldwin. It's a national brand window, you might have seen the advertisements on TV. It's a popular window. But we will use any windows you want. If you want to substitute like an Anderson window or a Hardy window, we're open to that type of thing.
Subject to price adjustment.
Yes. The Hardy windows are approximately the same price as the Geldwin windows that we would use.
How has the process worked in other towns? So we're between annual meetings at this point, and we've become what's called an SB2 town. So my guess is that you've made a proposal. It sounds like we would need to go through a second round of proposals. It sounds like the select board would pick a winning proposal, and then it would go to the budget committee, who would have hearings. And the budget committee would say yay or nay, and there'd be some tussling back and forth, and then it would go to town meeting, and there'd be a deliberative process hearing on that. And then if a bond was approved, at that point, town officials would have the authority to sign on the dotted line. How do you account for price changes during all of that process? And would you make a proposal September 1, and you don't have a contract signing until sometime in April?
Well, the way we would do that is we would, this is a long process to get it through the towns. So we would anticipate when roughly we thought you would be building that, you would actually start to build the units. And we'd kind of build that into our budget, so it would all be inclusive. And then we wouldn't come to you and say, oh, you know, if you don't start this till May, we're gonna have to charge another 3% or something. We're already gonna build that in, so that you don't, so we're not coming back to you and saying, oh, you know, it was 6 months ago, you asked us to give you the first bid, now it's 6 months later. So that happens all the time. I mean, it's a tough thing to get all this approval through the town. So we kind of anticipate that and include that in our pricing. Hopefully that answers your question.
Or do you have an escalator clause or something like that?
It kind of depends on how the whole thing works out, so. Does somebody have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Where the town hall or the police station to be located, there's no services other than water. Does your price that you're quoting include a septic system?
Yes, I think we had a septic system. Again, we don't know that design, but we estimated the cost of doing that.
And how about an emergency generator for the complex?
I talked to the chief about that. We did not include the generator. We included the transfer switches and so forth. You guys were looking for three-phase power, and we're not sure why you want to go three-phase power, but a three-phase power generator is a lot more expensive than a single-phase generator. So we did not, to answer your question, we did not include the generator in the cost. Yes?
Actually, this is probably more appropriate for the committee. I'm curious, I just heard one of them, the generator, what the big pieces are that are not part of this, the building proposal, like the IT, wire, you're getting, obviously, sort of installation and moving of, there are going to be a lot of things like that. But what, the generator is one piece, are there other things that are not part of the proposal that we would need to?
Generator, security system, surveillance system. Yours includes fire alarm?
I don't think we included the fire alarm.
So you have to have a fire alarm. Those are the four big things.
Is you gonna have a sprinkling system as well inside the building?
Yes, we included a sprinkler system. And I also included that in the price to do the upstairs section. Again, we're just estimating that, so.
As far as the emergency operations center room, I've already been in touch with the folks at Homeland Security, and we can apply for a grant to equip that room and a generator for this building. So there is
The new
some,
building.
for the new building, yes. So there is some savings there that we hope to take advantage of. For the emergency operations room, we're talking, a couple of large TV screens, like a unit similar to this, a smart board, probably a pull-down screen or two, several phone stations, as well as a few computer workstations. Because when we open the EOC, we have a member of the fire department there, the police department, sometimes two. Sometimes the members of the select board are there. Sometimes we have a member of the highway department there. We have the water department there, as things are progressing in the town when we have an emergency like that. So we want to make sure that they have additional phone lines, additional computer lines, and things like that. So
I have a question for you guys. In our proposal, we used the building fee cost that you had on your website. And it looked like to get a building permit to do the downstairs was roughly around $10,000. You calculate out the square footage upstairs, and so it looks like it was based on the cost of the construction. It looks like you would charge another $7,000 for the upstairs, so that's a total of $17,000. Will the town waive those building permit fees?
I would hope so. So the town doesn't want to charge itself,
Well, I didn't know if I included that, so we can reduce the cost a little bit by taking those out of there.
There might be a spirited discussion, I'm not sure the town should waive site plan approval process, but might want to.
Here's another thing, I don't know if you have had any site plans done for this project yet, but we estimated what that might cost in our proposal. And there's a company called Norway Plains, I don't know if you're familiar with them, they do a lot of local stuff. We talked to them briefly, they gave us a rough estimate, and that's what we put in our proposal. So that would have to be done well before the start of the project to get all that information lined up.
I have a question.
Question?
This is actually more of a question for you, Bob. Can any of the surveillance or security equipment that's in this building be transferred over to the new building?
part of it can, but we want to, because we know the big issue right now is, do the police leave or do the police and town leave? If the police leave, but we keep the town operations here, we need to keep some of the surveillance system here because we're connected in the same system. Some of the components I can take with me, majority of it, it's going to have to, unfortunately, have to stay here.
Okay.
Yeah. But in the scheme of things, those are the least expensive items. So.
Bob, on the first plan without the town hall being included on it, we had said that there was going to be downstairs a conference room that can be utilized by the town, because it's going to be outside of the police department. Is that still the plan will that still be there with?
I would imagine there would be a small conference room upstairs, a meeting room upstairs. However, we have put on the police floor a conference room, I think it's 28 by 40 feet, which is larger than this room here. So it can hold town meetings, smaller town meetings if need be. You could easily use it for voting and whatnot. And we actually have designed it so you have a separate entrance on the side. Originally, the plan was to come to the lobby of the P, go to the right, you're in the conference room. And then after looking at the plans and talking about it, we said, why don't we just give them a separate entrance? This way here, they don't have to disrupt the police function going in the front. The select board members, the committee chairpersons could all have their own pass card to unlock the door. It's separate from the police alarm, so in and out.
Has everybody seen the floor plan that we submitted and so far?
The committee has. The public has, no, the committee has. Because that's still in flux as well. Of all the proposals that were submitted, some of them were different than what we had proposed. So.
I have a question for, I don't know who has the answer to it. How many parking spaces are we looking at in this?
I think your plan was almost 19,000 square feet of tar.
Yes,
That sounds about right?
yes. I don't know how many parking spots that was, there's quite a few.
I think we're pushing around 30, if the town came with us. I mean, certainly for the police, you know, we may not need that many, but if we decide that the community room was going to be an exact community room, and the town was going to use that as a town meeting room, then certainly we would want probably at least 30 parking spaces anyway.
How many do we have here?
Not many.
No, I don't.
10.
14, 12, 13, something like that.
What's up, this account?
And certainly, there's also the possibility, depending on where you put the building on that site on Silver Street, if it goes there, once the site plan is done, there might be a possibility of actually adding additional parking. We'll bring the price up a little bit, but you might be able to put in more parking if you want to utilize the whole piece of property up there.
That's right. We calculated 15,850 square feet of pavement, but I don't know how many, we didn't break that down as to how many parking areas that would be. That also included asphalt curbing that we put along your landscaping, so you're not driving onto the grass.
Is the committee continuing to look at other space options, other places to site the building?
Well,
Well,
go ahead.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
I spoke to one family in town, and I've yet to hear back definitively yes or no for another piece of property. If this piece of property, then certainly you could put eventually a police, fire, town hall, all on one floor. But I have not heard anything back from that family as of yet, definitively. Hopefully soon, definitely before March, I hope.
Yeah, this is, some of the, among all the other things we need to consider, one of my concerns is that, we're not leaving ourselves much room for growth in the future at that particular location. And it is town property, so if the town looks like it wants to proceed with this, with the idea, we can always, and if we have another site in mind, we can sell, we can go to, have a proposal to sell that piece of land in a nice residential area, and then use that to fund the purchase, help fund the purchase of site.
We did look at 3 different sites. 2 of them were, one of them had a lot of wet, right?
Right, we looked at the Silver Street site, obviously, and then we looked at the field that's on Rollins Road across from Greenview Drive. On the left-hand side there.
For sale?
The one that's for sale. But speaking with all the neighbors there, they say it's very wet, so. That's one reason why we're trying to get out of the basement here, because we have water issues. The next piece of property we looked at was the town owns 29 acres or 30 acres out, off of Greenview Drive, but out in the woods. And it's just a big pasture right now in some wooded area. And we determined that was just too far off the beaten path. You'd be spending millions of dollars just to put a road in there, never mind a facility.
Right. Did the committee do an estimate of what it would cost to use the town hall to get it up to spiff to do all of this? Has anyone done that?
Question is whether
What it
we
will
look
take
at
to renovate here.
Well, we do know, just for the water issue, it's gonna be at least $600,000 to $700,000. We received a proposal from one company, and their proposal was to actually take the entire police department, move us out of there, dig up the entire floor, put drainage in from one end of the building to the other end of the building, several lines of drains. Because the issue that we have is, the old timers will tell you, apparently there's a river underneath, or an aquifer that runs underneath the town.
You can hear it running in the summer.
And we seem to receive the hydraulic pressure and the water comes into the basement. So their plan was to, in addition to what the town's already done by putting drainage outside the building, was actually put drainage underneath the building. So that was between $600,000 and $700,000 just to do that. Now, if you're gonna do that, and spend that much money, you might as well do the rest of the building. You're talking about insulation, which a lot of this building doesn't have. You might as well redo all the windows. What else was there? Heating, oh, right, yeah, we need a new furnace. We know we have HVAC issues right now. Those are gonna be replaced. You know, we've been told that our generator, it's 20 years old now. It's on its last leg. They no longer make parts for it, and what. So, and back in 1999, the proposal was to spend from the townsfolk $750,000 to renovate this building. The contractors came back with the bids of $1.2 million. So the company was told, you got $750,000 to spend, do what you can for the building. So we know to renovate this building again, and it's still not large enough for us growing pains, it's not large enough for the town for growing pains, it's gonna cost you probably at least $1.2, $1.3 million anyway, just to stay here and fix this building again. And not have the added space that the town needs, the added space that the police might need.
I would just add to that, when we did the space needs assessment a few years back, to try to look at which of our units needed space, where that might be, the police department at the time was the one that was deemed the most efficient. And so, if you recall, they that their resolution, if we were to stay here, would be to buy that or buy that.
Correct.
Yes, now, that actually, we made some attempts to do that very thing when this went on the market, and it didn't materialize. So as you can see, I mean, it does, as you're saying, it does add to the expense. And the $600,000, which was a couple of years back now, was to, as Chief said, you dig it up.
And that's gonna balloon now as well, so.
Yeah, so that was the only sort of exhaustive or sort of the approach that had the best guarantee for success, so, but we don't really know, it's something we should attempt to figure out. We need to know what the operating costs are for this building with the police, without the police, and if the police go, we're still, for however many hours a week that we are open for business, we're doing an awful lot of heating and air conditioning that is not very efficient, and we're paying the price. I was just working in quarter two figures, and based on projections, I had to up the electrical budget for this building to $18,000 from what we originally budgeted as 10.5. Now, maybe that won't come to pass, but certainly based on the usage so far, and I don't know why it seems that way, but it's true that electrical usage as a whole has gone up in all of our sites. The cost, not the usage, but the cost, sorry. So there's still a lot of, number crunching to do in order to present the town with data that I feel that we need in order to make a rational decision about how best to proceed. But it's also true that, we keep discovering problems with this building, and they're not cheap. We've got our HVAC system comprises 5 compressors. They've not been maintained pretty much for their entire existence, and now they're 20 years old, and there's, one just left. So now we're putting a generator in the CIP, we're putting the compressors on the CIP, but it's kind of discovered, we don't have a director of maintenance. We're building person, really, per se. And so, maybe that's how these things happen. But these things happen.
Well, just to mention about the water issue, I just speak with the engineer, and I said, will this be, because we heard before that we're gonna do it right and it won't have any water issues downstairs. Even though we spent all this money to put this entire drainage system in downstairs, can you give me a written guarantee, 100%, that we would never ever have a moisture issue down there? So you can't do that.
Even with the 600.
Even with that money, says I cannot do it. So you probably have less of a problem, and you may not have a problem at all, but I cannot give you a guarantee that you will never have a water issue problem downstairs.
You can overstudy this.
Ed's question, I misunderstood, so I'm gonna, and it was, his question got answered. Now, I'm gonna make it my question. If we do a town complex, which, is just a really efficient way to go as far as I'm concerned, whether you have space or not at this point, or land or not, this building, as everybody is attesting to, has become a white elephant, a very expensive item. So I guess at any future meetings, you should address when and if you do a town complex, what's gonna happen to this building and how much is it gonna cost? Are we gonna make a historical monument out of it and have to put money into that kinds of things? So if you ever, when and if you make these decisions, I hope you address that at the meetings, what's gonna become of this building? We're gonna renovate it and keep it operating as usual, or we're going to do what?
I hate to disappoint you. I think it's an excellent point, but the charge to this committee was to look at police space needs. And
I know.
we were not voted in by the voters, we were not empowered by the select board to consider the whole range of options. And I suspect, just judging from some of the conversations that we've had and some of the opinion pieces that I'm seeing in the newspaper now, it's gonna be pretty contentious before we get to a decision.
Oh, I
So
know, and
don't think there's
again, I'm not bringing this up as an issue, I'm just bringing this up as, future discussion at meetings that everybody should be aware this is gonna get thrown and you have to be prepared.
Fasten your seatbelt.
Say we were to decide to build a fuel station, and also with future expansion, can we add on to it a second floor if we decide to do it in pieces? Or is the structure not for it if we only decide to go with one floor?
Yeah, you can add on to most of it. The big room we'd have to design that to carry the load for the second floor, but all the rest of it would be able to place units on that. So we don't have to do anything special to put that second floor on, except for covering that big room that you can put a little drum on.
But to do that, at some point when you decide to put the second floor on, you're talking about tearing off the entire roof system.
That's correct.
And what disruptions that may come with that. And then you have the construction on top, and then you're adding another roof.
Yes, that'd be
Do it once, do it right.
a lot of extra work to do that.
Yeah, they're not.
Yes, sir.
I got a question for the committee. Maybe I'm going a little bit out there, but is there a possibility that we could think about sending grade 1 through 6 to South Berwick and possibly using the school as a police station, community center in town hall?
It hasn't been discussed.
Well, I'm bringing it up as a thought.
We've heard folks say that, but I'm not sure that's our charge for the school. The school issue has been brought up to us, and the only concern that I would have about that is, to renovate, you're probably gonna spend as much or even more to build new. So now you have to take an existing structure and make it fit your needs, and that's what we did here for the renovation for this project here, especially downstairs. We got a lot of ways of space downstairs, because we got these great big huge pillars holding up this building that were just in the way of everything. So, we've got extra wide corridors that we really don't need, and we've got hundreds and hundreds of square feet that aren't used. Additionally, another concern is that, do you want police cars racing up and down Lily Street or Locust Street or Prospect Street, which are much more highly condensed and more heavily populated than either Silver Street or Rollins or something like that. It's certainly an option.
I don't see a
I'm
big
not
I don't see
sure
a
if
big
it's-
difference between Locust Street and Silver Street type shit.
Well, there is, especially when you mention the road, but
Yeah, I guess.
cars,
Small town.
but
And I would just add that it wouldn't make a big cost difference. It would actually probably end up being more expensive to use the school and to ship all the kids away. Just just based on already sending 7 through 12.
Well, that's good to know.
So that definitely, it already costs more, it costs the same anyway, and then you have to renovate the building. So I'm just saying, I don't think it would make much of a cost difference. It wouldn't save us money as a town.
I'm curious, the committee stated that you looked at the land out on Greenview Drive. Obviously, it's municipal land, it's many, many acres. I know you said that the cost to put in a road would be hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, I'm familiar with the area. To access that field that's owned by the town is not that far in from the roadway or the driveway that's already been put in. So are you talking about upgrading the portion of the roadway that's already there and putting in a new roadway? Because to just access the field is not even a football field. I mean, and that would access halfway down into the field. I'm just curious why Silver Street seems to be the location. It's such a small parcel. It's densely populated, whereas out on Greenview, it's industrial, it's easy access to Rollins.
I would not take a polygraph on my memory of what I had for breakfast, but what I think I remember is that we paced it off, and from the end of Greenview into the field, we went down into a depression and then back up into the field. And somebody was, familiar with the rough cost per foot of putting in a road bed and the drainage and the asphalt, and they came up with a number. I don't remember the number, I'm sorry, but they came up with a number and it seemed high. And then also the consideration of kind of the focus of where town services are now is in the village core, and putting the major or arguably the major town service out that far from the town core seemed, from a planning perspective, difficult. Obviously, we're an advisory body, and if the voters of the town wanted to do something different, they very well could.
And again, you were strictly focused on just the police. The addition of the municipal offices and the fire is kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, I mean, it was the charge from the select board, and I want to compliment the select board. They got a bunch of us who have different points of view on what should happen to serve on the committee, and again, contrary to some of the things you're seeing in the paper, there were no restraints placed on us. I was able to ask some very foolish questions and go off and do some research on things that didn't pan out, and the committee never stood in my way, never, the chief never discouraged me. So yes, we focused on the police thing, and we tried to keep a pretty narrow focus.
You did, okay.
Is there a minimum amount of acreage that we need? Is it like Silver Street, the acreage that, how many acres there are? 2 acres maybe, or?
That property over there is just about 2 acres on Silver Street.
Okay.
And the reason,
Go ahead, no, that's okay.
so if we had lots of land and we could keep everything on one level for, at one point we talked briefly about municipal fire and police, and you put it all on one level and you consolidate it. You get some cost advantages over that, but the constraints on the Silver Street side are that you have to go up in order to get both.
And it wouldn't fit fire. Yeah.
But I think, isn't it true that it's cheaper to build up than it is to build out?
That's true.
We have to be more energy efficient.
Originally, the plan was just for police to move to Silver Street. And then when we got to thinking, like the chair said, if the police leave, you're spending a lot of money to maintain this building for 4 hours a day for a couple of officers. So that's when, we asked the folks that submitted the proposals to come in and give us a rough idea as to what it would cost to go up on the Silver Street site. And again, at this point, we're not set in stone on the Silver Street site or any other place in town. And, certainly as this goes forward, we'll have some more information for you. But, we're just at the very beginning, basic stages at this point with the information that we're presenting.
Okay.
I've been hearing about this since early 70s, the first time I was on the building committee, and we were talking about it. And we've always been constrained by doing what we're having here And then later we looked back and said, well, we really shouldn't have done it that way, but we did it within the constraints we found themselves. And I'm concerned about the Silver Street site. I think it's too small, looking at what we need 20 years from now. And I agree with this gentleman and some other people I've heard here say that we probably should keep this whole complex together. We're a small town, and we don't need units scattered all over this town. So I think one of our criteria should be that we get these together, but I think Silver Street has some real deficiencies, and we'll live to regret it. I won't live to regret it, of course. But my children will be here, perhaps still be paying taxes, and they will regret it. And say, why did you do such dumb things? So we're always constrained, say, well, the only land we got's on Silver Street. I think we need to really go out and talk to some people. All land is for sale if the price is high.
Well, I'm just gonna throw out one more curveball. I think it was in 1936, there was 6.5 acres given to the town, it's over here called Sandbanks. That's been used for nothing. It was originally given to the town for a recreational purpose, so I don't know if we could build on it for that. But it's just a 6-acre piece of field that's been thrown up for years now. Between Silver Street, Main Street, Foundry Street. There's the large flat area right there. Once you get in, it comes down the hill, then it's probably about 4 or 5 acres flat. I don't know if that's been considered.
A lot of stuff has been buried on the site, because I've heard that,
And Sandy Banks?
yeah, same thing. They left a lot of garbage, and town kids go down there.
It's a junkyard.
Yeah, and they just put, I was told they
Better reason for
put
it,
some sand on it, now it's all forest. I went up and checked it out, because I'm on the garden committee. We
Yeah.
thought maybe do some gardening there, and that's trees now.
Just a comment here, I know every site has advantages and disadvantages. And so as you're trying to be thoughtful about where to site this, I mean, I think it's good to examine all sites that are available, and you make a list of what the issues are and what they might cost us to remediate, right? And so I wouldn't take that out of the loop. There are ways that you can check for whatever the soils are to see if there's contamination that needs to be addressed. We actually did that with the Silver Street location. We had as part of a brownfields project through the Stratford Regional Planning Commission. And so, it was deemed that there was no major issue there, but, so we could, something could be done like that with, Sandy Banks. And I know that I think you were the one who found the sort of restrictions, so we need to look at what those are. The use restrictions, because they were a gift.
Right.
Whatever, but.
Is there another piece of land on Foundry Street that we own as well, most of that field in there?
That's under an easement, most of it? Are you talking about where the garden club is?
Oh, yeah, the garden club and everything all the way back.
Oh,
The
yeah.
town bought that years ago, I thought.
I believe it's conservation.
It's wet, too. Did the committee look at all of the numerous parcels owned by the town currently as proposed sites?
Are we all set?
I think so.
That's true. Is there any more questions for him?
She wants to go home, I'm sure.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you.
Save money, were you here?
Oh, did they have something? Well, if it's a municipal lot, it's a municipal lot. I mean, doing it for something that benefits the town is better than what it's doing. So for us to pigeonhole ourselves into the Silver Street side, I just think, like Ed said, if we're a growing town, and I agree that I think it's silly to move one and not eight. Because if we're still going to pay for AI and whoever else is here, I mean,
It's bought.
I think the electrical cost might spike up.
Oh, yeah, that could be.
So hopefully, now that it's fixed,
That will subside.
plateau, we could reach our peak.
Right. Right. So they're just, why did they just put that up?
Because it's a different company. There's two presentations tonight. So here's the weaknesses, growing.
And are they a prefab company as well?
Concrete. I don't know. They do presentations.
Best case scenario is where it is.
Really?
They did the,
Someone new coming into town.
they showed us, they took us up to Milton.
What does it look like on the outside though? Do they?
Oh, it's in the siding of some kind, like a concrete siding too, I think.
So it doesn't look like just a concrete.
Not at all, that's why I felt like we had this. Not really, I don't know if we're really gonna go to solar, I don't think the neighbors are gonna really appreciate that, right? And so we say, oh, no, we don't do that. Okay. But then they showed us, that was excellent. Really impressed.
I want to go.
Yeah, they're gonna show you a lot more, they'll give you a lot more detail.
If I accept the road. That's the layout for the second one. Yes. Yes, yeah. That's the one that's done in cement. I have my that sounded like that. We should put those solar tiles in.
Oh, I mean, it's like a controlled burn for 5
I'll go look it up because I wrote it
Well, not necessarily, not should pay twice as much as you but
They probably would do it.
I've been 40, 50 years now.
Okay, I would like to introduce the folks from Growing Construction. On the left is Fenton Growing, the owner, and on the right is Jeff. He's the gentleman that I've been dealing with on the plans for the building. So, gentlemen.
Thank you a lot for allowing us to bid on this project, or not bid yet, but propose, I should say. I want to tell you just a little bit about our company first. First of all, we're local. We're located in Rochester, on Washington Street in Rochester. We're family owned. The company is owned by myself, my two sons. We're 36 and 41, I believe. And my wife could tell you exactly what that is. On top of that. But anyway, to me they're just peers, and then my brother is also part of the company. We started the company in 2000, and for the first 8 or 9 years, we did almost exclusively residential work. Then we started to get into commercial, as was our plan, and now we're roughly 60% commercial. We still do a lot of residential. As we've gone along, we've added to our team. Jeff Greenhalgh is our commercial division manager, and does a bang-up job on that. He brings in around 40 years. I think he started about 16. But he knows commercial, and then we have other team members, office administration staff, etc. One of the specialties, a couple of the specialties of our company are that we are a design-build company. My youngest son has an associate's degree in architectural design, And this came after spending about 13 years as, first of all, framer, finish carpenter, every aspect of construction. And then went to New Hampshire Technical Institute in Concord and got his architectural degree, architectural associate's degree in architecture. And he is both creative and extremely practical. He doesn't design stuff that's going to be expensive. He designs what the customer wants. And I'll give you an example of that in a minute. Another specialty that we have is insulated concrete form construction, ICF. That's, if you haven't heard of that, that's the styrofoam forms that you set and you pour full of concrete. It has a performance R value of around R50, 50, not your typical 2x6 wall, which has a technical R value of R21, but a real R value of about R50. So we do roughly 60% of our construction in ICF. We do other kinds as well, and I'll touch on that. But again, our design build works really well with the ICF because we can be very creative with that. This building is proposed in ICF. Building we did for Farmington, the police and fire station in Farmington. Farmington was spending about $45,000 for their combined two facilities that were less square footage than the new facility, which was 19,000 square feet. For utilities. They were spending $45,000 on utilities, and in their first full year of operation in the new building, they spent about $19,000 on utilities. In addition to that, it's a dramatic increase in comfort level. Again, just touching on that, we built our office building in Rochester, 27,000 square foot Class A office building. It's right on Washington Street, right across from Staples in Rochester. That building, you can go anywhere around the perimeter of the building, and the temperature is uniform with what's inside because of the high efficiency of the walls. It's just extremely comfortable. So you combine those two together, it really makes an excellent product. Just touching again on the team, we have something in excess of 130 years of combined construction experience. A majority of that in commercial. Mine goes both ways, commercial and residential. Jeff has a little bit of background in residential, but he's mostly commercial. So we just have a very skilled team in that regard. We have shown a flexibility, and I'll just touch on a few of the projects we've done. I think the one that you guys are most familiar with is the police and fire station, the public safety building in Farmington, 19,000 square feet. That is ICF perimeter with a wood frame, wood trusses, etc., wood frame interior, and that building then has spray foam over the whole ceiling. Extremely efficient building. We built a roughly 10,000 square foot highway department facility in Henniker. That's a pre-engineered steel building, and again designed for efficiency, but not as efficient because the pre-engineered steel is not. But it was excellent for what they needed as a highway department. We were able to put in things like a radiant heat floor and a pellet boiler and a number of things to add to the efficiency of that. Our building in Rochester, 120 Washington Street, 27,000 square feet. We occupy a part of that building. We don't need the whole space, obviously, but we occupy an office in there, and then we have numerous tenants. And that one, again, that building uses roughly 1/3 the energy of a conventional, brand new office building or professional building. Just recently, we did a 52,000 square foot manufacturing addition for TurboCam International in Barrington, and that is a custom engineered building, and the customer had designed the building to be a duplicate of something they had done before. We came in and completed that, and on that one we had a unique constraint. We started talking to them in June, I believe it was, and they had a pending contract coming up, and they couldn't jump until the contract was there, but once they did, they had to jump. And we got approval on July 23, We started on July 22, knowing we were gonna get it. We had 5 months to complete. January 1, they got to be able to move machinery in, and we met the deadline. We've done a small town garage in Barrington. That was a small project by comparison, 300,000. And on the residential side, but related because of the complexity of it, we did a 9,800 square foot ICF home in Epsom that was about a $2.5 million project. And in complexity, it was really significantly more complex than what we'd be talking about on something like this. That's just given some of the background. On the design build side, we are able to meet with you. My son Joe he's a listener, and he will go through with you, what do you need? Walls are easy to change before you pound them in place. And in the plans, we go through, we design it, and we go to what you need. And our customers have told us time and again that that's one of the things they like best about working with us. The end product can look substantially different. What I sometimes compare it to is some of you ladies when you were younger probably played with paper dolls. And you start out with a white cardboard doll, and that's your house, equivalent comparison. And then you can put a party dress on it. You can put, a milkmaid dress on it. You can put all different kinds of dresses on it. To some degree, that's not a whole lot different with buildings. Our building in Rochester is a more contemporary looking building. We can take the exact same building and make it look very traditional, like it was a mill building in Robbinsville, and have no change in function really at all. So just some of the concepts and just some of the things that we can do as a design build company. Like I said, we did propose this building in ICF, and that's within the price that Jeff will be talking about. It has tremendous advantages. I mentioned the energy savings, I mentioned the comfort. Another thing is quiet. The buildings are incredibly quiet. You can sit in my office in the corner of our building, overlooks the Spalding Turnpike, and most of the traffic, it just looks like a silent movie. Harleys, you can hear, and trucks when they slow down with their Jake brakes. But most of the time, it's just quiet. And that's one thing you'll really notice in a building like this. And then there's a safety aspect to it. If you're using this as a safe place, the walls in this are virtually bulletproof. The Department of Defense is actually starting to recommend this in a lot of applications as one of the more bomb-proof concrete structures because the ICF dulls the impact of a bomb against the building. That would hopefully never happen in your situation, but it is a very durable building, and then of course that also means that it's a long-term building. This is a lifetime investment. This building will be standing long after young folks like I are gone, and will still be straight and true. I'll finish with this comparison. I lived in Minnesota. We've been here since 1977, my wife and I. Still not natives, probably never will. But we were back in Minnesota from 91 to 93, and the most notable experience we had is in 1992, a class 4 tornado came and just was on the ground for 28 miles. And the town where we lived, it took out half the small town, 123 houses out of 240. And in addition to that, substantially destroyed a manufacturing, a meat processing plant that I worked at. But in the line of that tornado was one ICF house. And that ICF house, the roof was still intact. And the other ones were stripped. Many of them stripped down to a foundation. And part of the reason I couldn't figure out why the roof was still intact, because that's wood frame. And they say that one of the things a tornado does is it twists the buildings and then everything blows up. And with this, there's no twist. It stays solid and in place. Now, we talked about guarantees, and I'll never guarantee that this thing would, that the wood structure would withstand a tornado, and frankly, I couldn't guarantee that the concrete would. But what I've seen time after time is that it is a safe, durable structure. What more can you want for a police station and a town office? So that's a little bit of the background. With that, I'm gonna turn it over to Jeff, and he'll talk about the project.
Thank you. Much like the gentleman who was here before, our base price on the building, original was 1.120, so from 120, so within the same thing. And our estimate for the second floor is about 650,000. So there's not a significant difference. Give you a little bit. This was done by our in-house designer. This was sort of our vision of what we priced to get this done. This is ICF construction, as Fenton mentioned, with a wood frame truss. All the windows are Energy Star approved. All of the systems are set up so that if you went to the generator, for example, already has the automatic transfer switch put in. We literally just yesterday completed putting that generator in for the fire station we did in Farmington. And they got theirs under the grant also. So it literally had run the pipes out, they set it on, pulled the wire in, and turned it on and got it going. So, I mean, it was and that is an emergency center. That's I think it was it's a diesel-powered, Cummins diesel-powered 75 kVW generator that runs their whole thing. So I think it would be a nice addition to this. When we proposed this, as the chief had mentioned, we had, Joe Bruin had done an interior layout. Now, this is set up so that the trusses span outside wall to outside wall, and anything can get moved inside. So that if you don't want your meeting room this size, we can make it some other size. If you want your locker room shifted over, you want big, we can change all of that. I can tell you that our experience in Farmington with the police chief was he was sold on the plan, and he came in and we laid it out on the floor. We laid out the entire thing, and he went, oh, that's not really what I want. So, but before they're up, because we can put them anywhere you want, we were able to adapt and move that along. To the point about adding the second floor, we had really no idea what your needs were or whatever, but in order to price it, to get an idea on price, we put together what we thought might be a layout for what this would look like in terms of the town offices upstairs, just a taxpayers town offices section with some private offices, a conference room here, a lobby, stairs and elevator out off the back. The only thing that affects your space, chief, is that you have to have a second egress in the building, so we had to put a stairwell in, but it didn't really impact what was happening because it comes down to evidence in the other side. So I think that was what we started with. We had 88 bathrooms on that level as well, and then just to try to get a feel for what it might look like. For the second floor, Joe took that and brought that up to the second floor, so you get a sense of what the space was going to look like, what's there. To address some of the points that were brought up to the first gentleman, we do have included all the paving. All the questions that were asked, his answers were very good, as were ours. All that was included in there. We did include fire alarm in ours, but we don't include any of the communications, so we do have fire alarm. And in our proposal also, in order to, for the town legitimately to grant us a permit, we have to submit stamped drawings from a licensed engineer or architect for any commercial building. And it would behoove the town to not waive that, because everybody else who comes through would have a fit if you did. The cost of that is included in our proposal. So we have, we do the design in-house, and we work with an engineering firm in Portsmouth to review that from a life safety and code issue and from a structural issue, and they provide stamped plans for all of that. So, yes?
Is this on a slab or a foundation?
This would be on a slab. This would be on a slab, yes. And the nice part about this on the slab is because it has an ICF foundation that goes down 4 feet, there is no transfer through to the slab from the cold on the outside. So we generally use, in a building like this, engineers would typically say we needed maybe
10 tons of heating and cooling. And so we have one set of engineers who finally realized that in our building in Rochester, on each floor, on each half of each floor, they wanted 5 tons of heating and cooling. And we said, we don't need that and stuff. And we wound up with 3 tons, and we really need 2 tons. So to heat and cool the space, so that the system, the envelope is very tight. One of the things that we do also on the first floor, we run the walls to 10.5 feet, and then put the trusses across. We put drywall, we put 5/8 drywall on the bottom quarter of the trusses. We put 2 inches of spray foam over that, and then when we're all done, we blow in a foot of cellulose over that. But in that space, we put our ceilings at 8 feet. In that 2.5 feet, we run all our ductwork and piping and everything. So everything is in conditioned space. So we're not putting ductwork in a hot attic in the summer or in a cold attic in the winter. And it's readily accessible. You pop the ceiling tile out, you can get at everything. That's it. So it had worked well for us in the past, the other facilities we've done, and we're comfortable with the performance and viability of the design. And just as a point of reference, when we did the one in Farmington, there was a fire station that was being built in Milton at the same time, and they're very competitive as adjoining communities. And Milton got theirs, a 9,000 square foot facility for $2.4 million, and they got Farmington got a 19,000 square foot facility for $2.3 million. So they were a little gloating going on for what they got. So, and in a nutshell, that's basically what our approach has been, and happy to entertain any questions. Yes, ma'am.
So you heard, it sounds like you heard the prior
Yes, ma'am.
presentation, and so they gave us, Val gave us an idea of length of time, from, let's say, approval of contract, whatever. So how does that compare? What kind of time are we looking at for this kind of construction?
If we're doing the police station only, from the time we put a shovel in the ground, so it gets approved, there's an engineering portion, the final review portion. Once that's done, permits issued. From the time we put a shovel in the ground till we turn it over to you is 5 months. If we do the 2 floors, it's about 7 months from start to finish. Yes?
If we did the 2 floors, that includes the elevator too?
That includes the elevator as well. Yep. Doesn't include parking. We had 14,000 square feet of pavement. He had 15,000-ish for pavement as well. We do have a small amount of landscaping in our proposal, but just to make it a little more like the picture.
For the pavement,
We have about 14,000 square feet.
do you know how many spots it is?
I have no idea. All I know is we went up to 40 parking spots in Farmington, and we did 18,000 square feet of pavement. So if you want to extrapolate that,
Is it a standard elevator or a freight elevator?
No, it's a standard passenger elevator.
Thank
yes. It's not what's called a LULA. It's not a low use, limited use, limited access. That's, you get in, you could have a birthday going floor to floor, and they're so slow. But no, this is a regular standard passenger.
Thank you.
Of appropriate size to move furniture. So, right, so you can, all the office furniture, they can come in through the
That's
elevator.
nice.
Now, we heard mention of the phase 3 power. I think someone last year told us that the phase 3 power was in case you wanted to put an elevator in, or
We don't need, you don't need it for that. And the big reason you'd use the 3-phase is for most HVAC equipment over a certain size, generally over 5 tons, comes from the factory wired as 3-phase. You have to special order if it's single phase. These units would all be less than 5. And so, I mean, there is no disadvantage. For the 19,000 square foot facility, we have a 400 amp 3-phase service in Farmington. We could have done that with a 600 amp single phase service, and it would have been the same. The generator portion, the size generator that you would get through your grant would accommodate the 3-phase because it's of sufficient size to run the entire complex. So, and those are all, at that size, they're all diesel, but they're self-contained tanks. That's all.
And same question that I had for the previous presenter. Given the likely process for getting a bond and so forth, how do you handle the holding the price on your,
If you were to select us and say that this is 95% what we want, make whatever adjustments, we'd go back against where we are. Like the price I gave you today on that second floor is based in today's prices. So, and with the supplies we have, I can get all the windows for the downstairs at the same prices as I got before if I'm continuing to buy. So there'd be a drop dead date. We'd say, we need final decision from you and give you a date, and then we would give you a price that reflected any significant increase, and then we would hold that price going forward from that point on. It wouldn't be an adjustment. So.
Just to add to that, on the Farmington building, what was it from the time we got the approval for, we were selected as the design build contractor until we contracted, was a year?
15 months.
15 months. And the price we gave them and the price they ended up with, the only modification of that price is they originally asked us to quote that without asphalt and a couple of other things. And then they decided in the process, no, we want you to handle everything. And the only adjustments were for those. And other than that, we came back 15 months later and did that and came in budget.
And the saving grace for us, the big cost here is ICS, but we do that with our own crew. So we have control over that. And we do enough of it so that that's not a product that has been affected to date significantly. And knock on wood, concrete has not been dismantled.
If you were to add the second floor later, what would be the additional, in other words, you built it now and then you added it later?
I would put the floor structure in now, get that all set the trusses on top of that, then pull the trusses off. The only things that, and if we thought you might do that, we would put nothing in those trusses. We would run everything in the floor structure below. So literally, you could take off 20 feet of that roof, build that second floor, put it under roof, and then sequence it. I mean, let's put it this way, I wouldn't be looking forward to that job, and hopefully that would come after I'm retired.
You also, even with planning for it and trying to increase the efficiency, you would look at least a 30 to 40% additional cost on the second floor, because you're taking apart what you did before.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I hear that there's a lot of flexibility with how we arrange the space to start out with. Is there anything that's constraining with this kind of construction if we wanted to redo interior space? Or would it be just like a regular
No,
building?
all we would have to do is ahead of time, I believe that would be, in this structure, it would all be clear span. So 60 feet, so we can clear span 60 feet, wide open. If you want to take this wall out, put that wall, move that around. The only thing that you would have to be aware of is that above the ceiling, you have all of your mechanical. Right. So that as long as the work that took place was below the ceiling, meaning you take the section of ceiling out, you bring your wall back up, then you put your ceiling back in. If there's a main duct running through, you have to be aware of it. You don't have to move it necessarily, but you have to be aware. Yes.
I'm just curious, I mean, not that, you just never know how things are going to go. So how about expanding a building like this out of ICF?
Yeah, ICF, good.
Adding length or width?
Exactly the same way you would do it with a wood frame. If you had a wood frame, 60 by 90 is the footprint, and trusses bare all on the outside. If you're gonna move this outside wall in a wood frame building, you gotta put a header in, you've gotta make some adjustments to it. You do exactly the same thing you do with ICF. For example, in a fire station, we have huge overhead doors. Well, we have to create those openings in the ICF with bond beams that work over the top. So that's what you do. You restructure that so the thing would support itself and support the roof. So you could add onto it without any difficulty.
And if you add on the gable ends, there is no structural change, generally speaking. We could very likely cut new openings in the concrete wall, which again is not difficult with today's concrete cutting machinery. And on the gable ends, it's quite easy to add. Going the other way, we just have to make sure that we're supporting the section of the wall we cut out. if all we cut in were, say, 2 doorways into new hallways, there very likely would be no structural change to it whatsoever. It would just be adding a building, you know, off front or back. Like I said, the gable ends, either end, be very easy to add.
ICF, so I'm trying to make sure I understand, so the walls,
Yes.
cement, but then the rest of the structure, the roof is.
The roof is all
Timber,
correct,
obviously.
correct, yeah,
Okay, so the second, if there was a second floor?
would be ICF.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure I understand.
Yeah, would be ICF as well.
All right.
And just again, so you understand, we pour the footings with your typical 4-foot frost wall.
Mhm.
So the bottom of your footing is 4 feet below grade. From the point we put the ICF on top of the footing of the roof is continuous ICF. Anything that ties into the floor system inside is going to be done inside the ICF. So you have an unbroken thermal barrier from the footing to the roof.
But there's also steel reinforcement in the wall too, isn't there?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, tons and tons of rebar in the walls.
Does it include perimeter drains and drainage in the crawl space? Just,
Well, there is no crawl spaces on the slab. So there,
oh, so this is a slab, so
This
there's.
is a slab.
Okay, so there is no
crawl
crawl,
space.
okay.
Right.
But does it include perimeter drains?
well,
Or
Wouldn't need to,
drainage?
Doesn't need
because
to,
The
you
site
know. We
would
don't
slope
need-
away from the building.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
you
that's true if there
wouldn't
is
need-
no,
wouldn't need
okay.
perimeter.
That makes
Right.
sense, thank you.
We're very aware of how.
keep the floor above. Yes.
Are you anticipating any cost increase in the next year?
Oh, the answer to that is yes.
Do
No, I
you have an
mean,
idea about that?
well, I can tell you that I'm working on another project we bid a year ago, and I'm rebidding it today, and the building materials are up 13% from exactly what, I mean, I did exactly the same building, up 13%. Now, to put that in perspective, this is a $765,000 building. That increase in the building materials amounted to $14,000. So 13% sounds like a lot, but it's not 13% of 700,000. And a lot of the things that we do, our vendors and subs that we work with notify us in advance of when we're doing stuff. And if we say, this is a job, we get a whole lot better pricing than this might be a job. And they'll hold their prices, their suppliers will hold their prices for what is a real job, as opposed to what might be a job.
Now, we've heard you mentioned a couple of times about design build.
Yep.
Would you mind to explain to the folks what the design build means and how it actually saved us money by the design build as opposed to going out to an architecture and having him design it and then coming to you folks?
Right. The advantage is that, because Joe Gruen is in-house and very talented at taking this. So if we got this and you said, you know what, we'd like you to do this job, sit down with it, sit down with the town portion, design that. We do all of that work in-house. So that's a cost that we built into this, in addition to the cost for us to have it reviewed by licensed professionals, so that we can, within the statutes of the state, apply for permit and build it accordingly. The meter's not running constantly. We've got that number in our bid. If you made us do it 50 times, the meter might start. But if we're adjusting it, every time we meet and say, you know what, I'll give you an example. We had, in Farmington, the arsenal was a certain size, and then the evidence room was a size. And then when we finally looked at it, they go, wait a minute, we don't keep that much in the arsenal, but we have an awful lot of evidence. So we move it. It doesn't cost us anything to do that. If we go back to an architect, I mean, they're a business, they have to pay people to do that. We've built that into the cost of what we have here. And it's, it's not, I believe, and I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe built into that number is about $90,000 of design and engineering review that's already included in that cost. So it's not in additional to, it's part of. That's there.
Just adding to that, and believe me, I'm not knocking architects. We work with them, we build structures they design. It seems like, especially on municipal buildings, that architects do a lot of CYA. you know what I mean? And just as a couple of examples, we did the highway department facility in Henniker. And for a good size, 10,000 square foot facility, which was about 85% garage, washing trucks, the whole works. You know, a good gas water heater would have sufficed just fine. But what was the water heater they put in?
They spent we spent over $20,000 on a specified heater, and because the furthest point that they were gonna draw hot water exceeded the distance allowable, they had to have a circulating hot water system, which means the thing's running constantly, circulating hot water to get it there. Our proposed resolution was, let's put a point of use one right there, and just have a hot water tank here. The architects know if that's not gonna work. So in Farmington, for example, we don't have a circulating one. We have a demand water heater that services the bulk areas, and on the remote locations, we have an instant hot water at each of the ADA bathrooms that satisfies it at, probably less than 50% of what the cost would be. And that's one of the differences in design build. You tell us what you want, we tell you the least expensive way to get it, and get here. And the way, if I'm not taking too long here, the way this generally works for us is we agree on a price for what's gonna happen, what's in there. And we're very upfront. Everything is open book with us. We show you what we wanna make, what we've got in for contingency, we bid it out, we show you what we bid, what we didn't get. And our thing is, and it was with Farmington, we had shared savings. Every dollar we share, we get a percentage of. There's a motivation to us to save money for the town. And in the end, we have what is called certification, which means you sit down with us, it shows what we did for a contract, what the purchase order was, what we wrote the check for, what we got the lien waiver for, so that everything is out there for you to look at. It makes my life much easier, because my father always said, you never have trouble remembering your story if you tell the truth the first time. Experience again, so. But it's a much easier way for you to go back to the constituents in town and say that we got a fair deal, and our motivation is if we're saving money, if we can save you $10 and we can get 4 of them, we'd be more than happy to do that. And if you get 6, you're happy. So.
I might add to this that we built into our price. Again, our in-house architectural designer is not a licensed architect. So we have to bring in a licensed engineer with an architect. And they review all the plans for life safety issues, for ADA issues, for structural issues. Everything is reviewed. We then go to an MEP, mechanical engineering, plumbing contractor, an engineering company, and we work with them. We start out though, and we tell them what we want for fixtures. So again, I want to go back to Henniker for a minute. We went with that, and the whole thing was a rush, because if any of you remember, the Henniker Highway Department garage burned down, and they wanted something ready to go by January. And so it was a rush. We actually started construction before everything was pinned down. Then we come to find out that they spec'd out $440 toilets and over $400 sinks and over $400 faucets. Kohlers. Now we could go to Kohlers, same brand, standard stuff that's been used for years and years, and do the same thing for under $200 each. But no, they didn't want to bend on that. Now, you start doing that on a whole bunch of things, and pretty soon, a $1.1 million building is a $1.5 million building. We team with you, and believe me, we don't cut corners. But we go through, and if there's a Kohler product that's been on the market for 20 years and it's working great, we're not gonna take something new that a Kohler salesman just sold to us to give a try. That's gonna cost $400. And that's just a big difference. We're on your team.
So I very much like the pragmatic approach and am encouraged by it. I've done some research. I currently, well, not much longer, the chair of the select board. So, and we've just done a round of financing for some other projects. And so I checked with the USDA on financing through them, because it's long-term and the interest rates are pretty low, and so it's generally attractive. But, you know, as I started talking, he says, well, the first thing you have to do is get an architect. So my question is, have you worked with USDA, and have you been able to, you know, because you have, you're sort of getting some architectural approval on the, within it, do you?
We can meet that criteria. The architectural and engineering firm that we work with primarily is JSN out of Portsmouth. They have both sides of that. They can stamp for architecture and for structural engineering. And they actually can stamp for civil engineering as well. And so, yes, we can meet that requirement. We meet it a little different. Ours doesn't start with an architect and all the costs that relate to that. Ours starts with a practical design, which we then take to a practical engineering company, which JSN is. And yes, we can meet the requirements for that.
Have you done any USDA financed buildings?
No, we haven't done any US.
We haven't residential, but not.
But not out of commercial?
But we have done HUD, you know, some HUD-related ones, and some rural development ones, but not USDA specifically. I gotta imagine.
I'm not saying that that's the best approach.
Yeah.
It also increases your paperwork on it.
Well, you know, one of the communities we've been working with, and it didn't get passed, I'm sorry to say, but they wound up getting their best deal going to a local bank, not going to the bond.
And that's what that's what the USDA would require us to do regardless, because they, you know, they feel that they're the lender of last resort, and you should be trying the local economy.
Right.
And your local
And that's where
banks.
this community got the best deal, was from a local bank. For long term.
And with the least strings attached.
Yeah, so you don't want, USDA is really onerous, I would say that.
You will have a lot of dollars into your costs and your paperwork.
The only other thing to keep in mind also is a lot of times if you take any of that funding that's tied to them, Davis-Bacon wages apply.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden, you know, for example, we're doing one in Portland right now that the local market for carpenters is $20 to $25. I have to pay $39 plus another $14 in benefits. So I'm paying $43 an hour for carpenters versus $25 an hour for carpenters. So those are all some of the strings that get attached. Can be attached. I'm not saying they are, but you know. And on that particular project is adding $800,000 to their project because of their funding.
So that's something to keep in mind.
And just I have very, very little knowledge of contracting, public contracting law, but I think my recollection is design-build contracts work a little bit differently. So you might just double check with council whether there's any difference in terms of how the bonding lawyers look at it and so forth.
That's a good idea.
Because I recall, I think you gave me a copy of the contract to look at for Farmington. It just looked a little different
Right,
than
it
your
is
standard.
Right, it is pretty straightforward. The requirements are the same that we use a standard AIA type contract format. And the issue is primarily around, are you providing statute appropriate documents to build that the town can rely on based on the professional strength of the people support providing this, and we do that. But that's the caveat, that, you know, if you get in and I can give you a napkin and build it for you, but, you know, I was a math teacher in Somersworth when I started out, so I don't have any credentials beyond that.
Any other questions? Final thoughts?
No, we appreciate the opportunity. It's been a pleasure dealing with the community. A number of people came out to see Farmington. And if any of you have any interest in doing that, I'm sure we could organize a field trip again. They've been very cooperative, having people walk through to see what the end result looks like. And, it's, you know, we love the opportunity to work with the community. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
They've been fabulous.
I have two comments for the committee. First, when the first presenter asked about whether or not we would waive the building fee, all they meant was the fee they pay for the building permit. They did not mean waiving the town would never waive what has to be stamped, what has to be looked at legally. It's just the fee, which would then raise our taxes, to then have to, not have to pay it. I mean, it's like, well, you understood that, right? Okay. And the second comment was, I like the deal with local, I like the idea of the construction, that they'll be standing long after all this is going on, and, I don't know, I don't know why we haven't heard more about these guys, they sound fantastic.
How many people are in this building now?
You mean the residents?
No, work in this building.
Yeah, I mean, the people who.
Office residents. How many
I
employees
say
work?
until tomorrow.
Well, you have 3 permanent upstairs here, and then occasionally, the tax collector and the have volunteers come out and assist them, and on occasion, sunlight.
building inspector.
The building inspector comes in, and sunlight comes in to help Carol on occasion. Treasurer helps in. Sometimes when they-
How many people work in this building on a given basis?
We have 3, 4, 5.
Up here, and you kind of believe that these aren't.
Probably 6. Every day.
Yeah, some fraction of that. Because it's
Yeah.
always
In and out.
in and out. You know, I'm here, other board members are here.
Yeah, they say full time a day.
6 during the daytime. At nighttime, we're occupied playing a shift, 1 or 2 houses. And committee meetings upstairs.
And how many square feet?
This is 54 by.
So she's moved down. I've never seen this. They're just getting thanks for their representation.
Yeah, they don't sell.
Yes. It's about 5,000.
You know, if I see it, I might clean it. But if I'm not looking for it, the top of the refrigerator.
Actually, what's making it larger is the garage. And a couple of extra feet. Other than that, the existing footprint of this building. But we're gonna utilize the space, because there's a lot of ways to
See, I think what they ought to do is take over any management facilities for the school.
Well, they said how many offices do you want?
They get rid of their facilities. Turn it over to them.
Code enforcement, planning, zoning.
But then
You can put what you think for offices in there. And they may have days
They
that
did
might
that
build
before
one,
without
you may be able to
fixtures
get
for
one
the city.
or you may build 10 offices.
Oh, yes, sir.
Pretty good, Jeff. I'm just concerned about the concerns that you have here about.
I've seen her 3 times longer than that.
I hate to be the grumpy old man. I
Oh,
cannot
there's floor
hear,
plans, yeah.
and there are lots of people in the room that I hear at other meetings that want quiet when they're talking. I just cannot hear, my hearing is not as good as it used to be, and I just cannot hear what is, I think, still part of a public meeting. No, you had the floor, right? You
No,
had the
I'm
floor.
just,
I just
it
couldn't
sounds
hear.
like, it sounds like people are concerned about this space and growth potential. My question is, this town hasn't changed in 30 years. Are we expecting it to change in the next 20?
Our fastest growing population is ages 1 through 5. So,
Our population is the same it's been for 30 years.
Is the population of Dover the same it's been for the last 20 or 30 years? I think what you have to do is look at the fields and spaces that are here in this town that are available for development and think about that.
There's a lot of.
Because we've already heard that the pressures on Dover are now moving to Barrington and somewhat to Rochester and Somersworth, but right now it's mostly, Dover, Barrington. And at some point, people are gonna discover Rollinsford. And it would be nice to think that nothing is going to change in our town, but just look at the possible open spaces that are available, that are not under conservation easement. And, you know, make a prediction, I mean, the town is just not going to stay the way it is. And so you've got to at least think about how you're going to manage growth if and when it does occur. It's really, I think, just a matter of time.
Yes, Lorraine?
I have a question for the chief. How many officers do we have on the force?
We have 5 part-time, 6 part-time, animal control officer, and 4 volunteers.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Just, we have 3 current select board members, and as I listened to the conversation tonight, it sounds like the town has a number of options on the table between police only, police and municipal, police municipal and fire, Silver Street or not. And my sense is that these could be pretty contentious issues if we don't figure out a way to address them to get the maximum amount of consensus possible. So I don't have any proposals or suggestions for you. I know you have all been good listeners tonight, but I wonder if, I think already looking ahead to, we're an SB2 town, we're gonna have to be, I believe in January, having our deliberative session, maybe it's early February, we have to have our deliberative session. So for this to go, we've got 2 proposals. The question will be, do we need more proposals or not? Do we need proposals for a different place or for, you know, 1 facility or 2? Do we just, you know, dynamite the existing town hall? And I suspect there are some people in town who have a point of view about that, on both sides. So I guess I hate to encourage another study committee, but you had a good turnout tonight of people who were really interested in this question. The chief has been incredibly patient and generous with his time. I just wonder if we can, if the select board can help to devise a process to move this forward that is not as contentious and fractious as I suspect it's likely to be. That's my comment.
Can I just add? I mean, from my point of view, there's still a lot of data to try to collect. You know, there's whatever option is chosen, I mean, you've got to figure out a site, and I'm not sure that we have that nailed down, really, because some of us are concerned about the growth potential, and that we could be constrained on Silver Street. But that if we're going to think about it at some point, even if it doesn't happen right away, that it's a municipal complex and that the town administration is there, then what do you do with this building? And if it's transitional, then how are you managing, or not transitional, let's just say it's just the RPD. What are the operating costs here, and what are we adding for operating costs there? I hear that that's a very efficient building, but it's not zero. And so you've still got probably not much reduction of what's going on here, just because of the nature of how those systems are designed, plus another building. So we need to know what those costs are. You can't make these, you know, you have to be able to answer those questions. And I just think there are a lot more questions that we need to work on. I don't know what the best process is, but I mean, I think this was helpful just to get an idea of what it looks like. We can kind of envision and think about things. And for me, it just says there's still a heck of a lot of work left to do to nail down data and details and understand what it all means. So that there are you know, so that there's this we can think about, and then, you know, there's this we can think about, and there's this we can think about.
So based on what I just heard Charlie say, are you considering your work done, or are you, or do you have a recommendation on the proposals that came before us today, or was it just now being thrown back to the select board? I'm not quite sure what the process is here. I guess I was thinking there would also be a recommendation from this group that's done some great work, I think. And if you're looking for feedback on the group, I really liked the last presentation for a number of different reasons. Very local, the way they would hold costs down, the way they want to be a partner in cost savings, that, you know, every dollar they save us, they get 40 cents, we get 60 cents. I mean, that's, to me, that's just seems very reasonable. Now, is there more work to be done as a town to figure out where it's going to be, whether it's going to be police, town, fire, if it's going to be everything or not, or how much of that it's going to be? That there probably is more work to that, but it might be helpful to get a recommendation from this group. I don't know if the select board wants a recommendation from this group, but I certainly know the one I would be recommending at this point after both presentations.
Yes.
Well, to give you my own opinion here, the last one is one I support. I like this idea. I really think for the long run, whether it's 20 years or 30, 40 years, this site you have currently is how many acres? 2 acres. I think it should be at least a minimum 5-acre site or bigger. I'd like to see 10 acres, but I got some other thoughts about that. I've talked to people 20 years ago about sites that I haven't heard discussion of that lately. I don't know what the site committee, or if you have really, I know you went out and talked to some people, but well, you have very exhausted it, and I talked to a guy 20 years ago, and the land is still here. And at that time, if it was going to be used for a municipal or school site or so forth, I might have considered it. Didn't want to consider it for housing development and so forth. And so I'd like to talk to someone, but I really, right now, if you have me to vote, I'll vote against this. I like the plan. I just think it's putting it on too small a site and just digging up a lot of other problems that we have in the future. And so let's do it right now. I think if you put this together and just the economies with this project here, it'll pay for much of the financing. I'm always worried about how you're going to finance it, but you're going to save enough just on heating and so forth that you can take care of, explain that it's not that bad. The real problem then we have, what in the hell you do with this building? And 30 years ago when I was involved in this, everybody was going to upgrade the upstairs and have a nice auditorium and all this. Those are the older people. Most of those people who were for that are gone. And the new young people coming here, I don't think they have near as much affinity to having this upstairs fixed up, which is going to cost us thousands of dollars, which you're not going to be able to do if we're going to do this. And we do need to do something like this, whether it's this year or next year or whatever. But all I would plead is let's think more about this site and make sure we've exhausted all possible sites and find out what it's really going to cost. It's going to cost some money to get a different site. But as you say, you got a couple acres up on Silver Street that we could sell for house lots right off, and I don't know what we'd do with this, but maybe buying a piece of land, 5 acres somewhere, wouldn't be as much as you think it would be. And for the long run, I think it'd be very efficient. But you're going to have to convince guys like me. I talk to a lot of people, and putting up more sites and so forth around here is not going to sell well, and it doesn't sound efficient, and I don't think it is efficient. So Bob's got to go out and get that site quick, and then we can approve them in the spring as far as I'm concerned. And I think if you put together it right, and have this guy talking to a larger group of people that they understand the efficiencies that's inherent in what we're proposing here, they'll see that maybe the financing is not so bad after all because of the savings.
But those are the numbers that I think we need to be able to run, even if they're just projections, as long as they're defensible and they make some sense, then you can show how, you know, the absence of this building and the consolidation of some of our...
Yeah, what will it cost them really operate, put some real figures together.
Exactly.
And then I think it's saleable, even conservatives like me.
But you gotta run the numbers, you gotta be able to,
Yeah.
you gotta show people.
And we also have to figure out where Ed's land is and how much he'd like to,
Really?
if he has 5 acres somewhere.
I've got 20 acres of land I'd love to sell you, but it's in the wrong spot.
I have a question for the chief, and Chief, I'm gonna apologize for putting you on the spot, but it may be helpful to the select board and to the public that are here to hear your analysis of it. There was a letter to the editor today that said, we don't need no stinking police station, we just need to pay our cops a little more. What's your analysis of that?
I really don't want to make a public comment, because
Okay.
it is a resident of the town of Rollins, so I certainly don't agree what was in the letter, but other than
That's why I asked for analysis,
Right.
so
It's-
why do we need a police station and not just pay people more?
But there are several other things too.
Yeah, no, I won't go there either.
But certainly, I think that we still have some more, I don't think we're done here. I still think that we have some more work to do so that we can make a better recommendation and a more informative decision and process to send to the select board and then to the folks.
Agreed.
I don't think we stopped tonight. We need to
Yep.
go.
And one of the
Does anybody
things
remember how many properties were on the list originally that we started with? No, there was like 9 or 10.
Well,
There were
originally we did talk about like Foundry Street, and we just said it's too wet, why even bother? I think there were 5 or 6 only that we actually started with, but, you know, like Sandy Banks, I mean, it's down in the gully, how do you get to it? I mean, again, because it's in a bowl, whether it's from Main Street or from Locust Street, that's where all the water's gonna go. And again, we're trying to get away from the water issue. So I think that was at the beginning why we just said no to Sandy Banks. And then it was the Silver Street, off Green Grove Drive, and then the Rollins Road property, the field over there.
And I jousted the contracted police services windmill. We didn't generate anything that looked very favorable financially for
I'm
the
sorry,
town.
what?
We looked at contracted police services, in other words, why, instead of building, a $1.8 million to facility, can't you save something by contracting your services? And Summersworth was not interested, and Dover came back at a pretty high number, so.
And also
They were-
utilization of some of their building as well versus, like renting space in their facilities. Not a positive comment.
But they're good questions to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just have to try to consider all kinds of.
Well, I think as we go along, we're likely to hear more of these kinds of, well, why didn't you do this, why didn't you do that, why didn't you ask this question? And they can become fairly contentious late in the process.
I know that there's still a lot to go over and decisions that have to be made, but I think like the biggest key to getting this through, when it comes time for voting, is the communication and putting a communication plan together now and starting the communication plan going now through that time instead of waiting till right before.
Nancy?
I just have to question, where would there be 5 acres of land that would be available that would be suitable for, see, Ed had mentioned it, do you have some, Ed?
I know whether there's some, I don't know whether, but I'm not gonna say anything about it out loud now. This is conversations I had with an
Okay.
individual 20 years ago, and I don't wanna presume that he's still thinking the same way, but I would remind him that he told me things like that, and has he changed his thinking completely, or what's his future plans? But there are a couple pieces of land around here that are within, between Silver Street and Route 4 and so forth, sites that would be accessible to most corners of town.
Is that the Nesbin property?
Huh?
Nesbin property?
That's one of them.
Wasn't that $1 million?
But feel free
Huh?
to pass any names along to me, and I'm more than happy to knock on the door and say, hey, this is what we have, can we
Okay,
do something?
Or take Ed with you.
That one time, concerns, and they haven't put any houses on it yet, so. Why haven't they? But at one time, they said, well, under the right circumstances, they might sell a town 15 acres for a school and municipal complex, but as I say, that was 20 years ago.
Sure.
I think I heard something well over $1 million for that property though.
Now, it might be.
Mhm. Nice work, guys. You guys have done some great work.
Thank you.
And,
Stand at your orders.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you.